Is the welcome to the Technical Advisory Committee. I can do a quick check on a quorum. 22, 3, 4, 5. Transit agencies in the room. I believe that is a quorum. All right, let's go ahead and get started with introductions in the room. I'll start off. I'm Dana Trey with SCTA, RCPA, and I'll pass it over to Chris.
Chris Barney, SCTA, RCPA.
David Davenport, Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District.
Jared Hall, Petaluma Transit Manager.
Owen Christopherson, Smart.
Kathleen Sullivan, Marin Transit.
Sean Sosa, Santa Rosa City Bus.
All right, and then let's pass it over to Zoom. Let's go ahead and start with SCTA, RCPA staff.
David Ripperda, SCTA, RCPA.
F. Britt, SCTA, RCPA.
Ross Glendenon, SCTA, RCPA.
Adam Garcia, SCTA, RCPA.
Matthew Wilcox, Santa Rosa City Bus.
Thank you.
I apologize on behalf of Sonic. I don't have the magic key to turn the car alarms off.
Yeah, I don't know if those of you on Zoom can hear the car alarms, but hopefully not. And I see that James Cameron just joined the Zoom as well. And I believe that's it. So let's go ahead and move on to public comment on items not on the agenda.
There are no members of the public on the screen.
Okay, no members of the public on screen or in the room. So we'll move on to approval of the meeting notes from the March 13th meeting.
Motion approval.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, so we'll move on to item number 4, and 4.1 is the Transportation Fund for Clean Air fiscal year 24-25 program of projects. And that is in your agenda packet, and I'll pass it over to David if you'd like to add a summary of this.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. So we received applications for the fiscal year 24-25 TFCA call for projects. There was $626,933 available. Unfortunately, we had enough funding to do all of the set aside projects for the transit operators, and then 2 of the competitive projects, one for City of Santa Rosa for some class 2 buffer bike lanes, and then partial funding for SCA's Go Sonoma commute program. Unfortunately, we did not have enough funding to do the City of Petaluma's D Street bike lane gap closure project. That project would be eligible for the call for projects next fiscal year. And I should note that we are looking at re-examining the TFCA set-aside policy in the future as part of the changes with mascots and the coordinated claim potentially next fiscal year. So we may switch to an entirely competitive process for TFCA, potentially just looking at the cost effectiveness score. But for this year, we're still using the existing policies, and we're looking for your approval.
Thanks, David. Any comments or questions on the TFCA program projects? Somebody would like to make a motion on this item. Take that as well.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
The only other effective translation would be you.
Yeah.
Sure it is here.
All right, all in favor? Great, thank you all so much. Thanks, David.
Feels very strange to vote on this. Since it's
Yeah.
but
3 of us are just here.
I know we're part of your quorum, so.
All right, well, thank you all. So moving on to item number 5, this is the new standing item we have on regional meetings report outs. So this is an opportunity for any transit agency staff attending the various regional meetings that we kind of sifted through, who's attending over the last couple meetings, to just report out on any relevant updates that would be good for the group to hear. And we do have the Plan Bay Area and Transit 2050 Plus as a separate item, so this is kind of any of the other regional meetings.
I can say a few. Go ahead, were you gonna?
No, please.
There's been a lot of discussion, so at the various GM meetings of 1031, which is the transit bill at the state. I won't go into all the details. There's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of conflicting opinions. It will remains to be seen where that bill goes, given how heavy it has gotten.
Yeah.
They has been ongoing discussion about the KPIs. So those went to the Regional Network Management Committee last month. They're gonna go for just for information. They incorporated some comments, nothing super substantive, or that really changes direction. One is transit speeds on major corridors. What were the other ones? Yeah, I think that was the big one that we discussed. Anyway, that'll go for adoption this month, by the R&M Council, and then it'll go through their various committee structure to actually get adopted. The idea with the KPIs is that they adopted a kind of streamlined set for now that can be, there's existing data that we can report on, and then it will sort of be an evolution over time of what we can, as the R&M sort of gains momentum. I think the vision is to have a more robust set of measures that they can measure against. A couple other things that have come up in those meetings is, during the pandemic, back in like 2021, there was a discussion of streamlining the number of categories of service, so that we all use the same names for what we call services. And there was like a list of 70, and then we got down to 6 or something like that, I think. And so they are, and then that effort sort of went dormant, and the map they created was sort of dormant, and so they are bringing it up again. And I'm not sure exactly in what forums it's going to go forward, but basically it's relevant to a lot of the like to the mapping and wayfinding effort, and to some of the other regional efforts. And so just FYI, that's being discussed again. It'll be discussed at the steering committee next week. And so I'll have more information then. I actually missed the last discussion, but just so you know, that's being discussed. And if you had any really strong opinions in 2021, you might want to bring those opinions up again and report them. It's Andy Metz at MTC that's coordinating that. On the fairs side, there's been a fair programs working group and a Clipper staff liaison meeting, and a few things relevant to the North Bay. So we had an initial, so we have highlighted that retailers for Clipper is a big issue for Sonoma and Marin, that there aren't that many. And so if we're going to make this big push for Clipper 2, we really need more places where people can get cards. So we had an initial meeting with a small subset of agencies throughout the region. MTA, actually, SFMTA spearheaded it. But Barbara Vincent from Golden Gate and I talked about and I think she actually sent an email out to get a sort of like a retail Clipper working group for the North Bay to push MTC to make sure we get more retail locations, since the North Bay can kind of be forgotten sometimes. And apparently it came up, another idea that came out of that meeting was increasing the commission that retailers get for being a Clipper retail location. And so that apparently was discussed at CSL on Friday. I think it would be great. Apparently there's general support. There were a couple people or a couple agencies opposed just because it will increase the cost of the Clipper program in general. But just to get, it seems like to ever get smaller mom and pop kind of shops rather than just the Walgreens and Whole Foods of the world, you have to give a little more incentive. So that is also being discussed. And then the only other thing on fairs is the regional transfer discount. MTC tried to do a tried to get FTA to approve a Title VI analysis regionally, and it looks like that's not going to be possible. So they will give us guidance, but each of us will have to do our own. We'll have to do 27 or 29, whatever, different Title VI analyses for that as our boards adopt that program. So those are the only, I was just trying to think of sort of highlights that are actually substantive. And I know some of your staff attend all these various meetings also, but. So anyway,
A couple questions for you. Is that latter point done with finality? Or are they still discussing with FTAs or the potential changes?
I think they got a definitive no.
Wow, all right.
Because I can't remember how I was just looking at my notes. So. Yeah, free reduced transfer credits, they're making resources available for us to use. I don't know if that means financial resources or informational resources. I can clarify that, but basically each agency has to do their own.
Yeah,
But I think it was a definitive no.
yeah. And my update that I got from from Josh on our team is that there's gonna be a Title VI working group that's established, I think,
Okay.
to help with this process.
Oh,
So
great.
maybe that might be some of the resources that are
Yeah, maybe.
referenced,
Yeah,
which would be good because, I mean, it's really doing 27
Yeah.
Title VI analyses is seems pretty silly on the purpose of it.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll send 27 to the same one. I don't know.
Yeah.
And do you know the commission amount that Clipper retailers get now? How much?
2%?
Yeah, so it's 2%, except Walgreens gets 3%, which I found fascinating when I found that out because Walgreens has a lower cost of business than the mom and pop retailer, so it should be the
Yeah.
reverse if
Yeah.
anything. So the proposal was somewhere between 3% and 4%, but I don't know if since I just got the notes from that one, I don't know if they decided on
I don't
an actual number.
think they've decided. And I know that at some point it was being discussed whether it would just be retailers in EPCs, in equity priority communities,
yeah, I
or
saw
all retailers. Because that's a particular gap, is making sure there's more retailers in low income communities, so.
Although that, at least in Marin, that's a challenge, right? Because not a large part of the county.
Yeah, there's
is
very few.
EPC.
Yeah.
So trade-offs with that, of
Yeah.
course, but we'll see how it goes.
And then I was on the small general manager transit meeting yesterday. And most of the discussion, pretty much all of it was on SB 1031 again.
Yeah.
In particular, a couple of things they're discussing would be what's known as return to source funding.
Yeah,
So as in at the county level, how much funding are you putting in? What percent do you get back? What are the various components of it? Because there's
Yeah.
several. One is wanting every agency to get a minimal percent, say 70 to 80% return. And then there's a few shore ups due to the fiscal cliffs that the various agencies face, trying to make that whole.
Yeah.
Other sources included, so there's transit funding sources, there's a safe streets and I'm forgetting the third one, maybe a corridor one as well. But they're working through those different mechanisms and figuring out the different percentages in each and how it's structured. And obviously a lot of discussion and thoughts on that. I know the various agencies are considering it already, in some cases taking positions on it, but it's playing out right now relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And then also the guardrails, what it's
Yeah.
known as on the region-wide side, how the structure would work, MTC's role and the various components and helping to make the determinations of it. What pieces do they determine on behalf of the agencies, which don't they, et cetera. So all those kind of logistical pieces now being fleshed out. And I think there's maybe discussion on it Friday. At a
I think
legislative meeting.
Yeah.
You know
oh
more
yeah,
about
at
that?
MTC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if James has any more thoughts, if he's on about that. Okay. It's not.
So just background question, did Scott Wiener actually talk to any transit agencies before this made it? Because it seemed like it kind of came as a surprise. Or is it just advocacy based? Seamless Bay Area was the gospel?
I don't know. They haven't mentioned that he has spoken.
You mean the bill in general?
Yeah, it's. I mean.
There was a whole
I think
comment
even
letter.
MTC was surprised on this, right? That it was gonna, that it came. this
They
way.
were, they had that conversations, I think subsequently, I don't know, in advance of all of it coming together the first time, if they did, but you were gonna say.
Oh, I mean, I think it's been a work in progress. There've been many conversations, including a formal like comment letter that all the transit agencies sent
Okay.
before the bill actually, there was like the bill skeleton, which was a sentence or something, and then between that and the actual bill language coming out, there was a lot of conversation,
There was,
including formal comment letters from
Okay.
transit agencies.
And it's morphed a couple times. I believe it was initially two separate items, one by Weaver, one by Wahab. That's now
Yeah, because
morphed
I knew
into
there was-
1031.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I knew
And
that was what happened.
there'll be letters, but by the time they're executed and provided, it's almost outdated. It's morphed again
Yeah.
into a new version.
yeah,
So it's kind of a matter of playing,
Okay.
catch up with it and provide comments.
Yeah, because that's what I thought. It just seemed the evolution has just been so rapid. I'm
Yeah.
struggling to keep up with it.
yes,
Yeah.
that is a true statement, yeah.
Just real quick, jumping back to the fair programs and Clipper Retail Network, do you know if there's like any? So this group hasn't formed yet to kind of.
No, I
talk
think
about
it's
that?
in Barbara's court,
Okay.
and I did ask her a week or two back if she's gonna set up, and I think she's still on her radar to set it up.
Yeah, I know it's on her to-do list. I think she was out for a day or two. sick,
Yeah.
And then I was on vacation for a week, so I'm not
Yeah.
exactly sure what the latest is.
Yeah.
Yeah, several years ago, we had someone from Clipper come to this meeting a handful of times and talk about the network, and we kind of got to a point in expanding it, and which was not very, not far enough.
Yeah,
And then it seemed to sort of fall off, so. I think we could.
I know Cubic is required under their contract to do a massive expansion, like 250 new retailers in the next 2 years, and then another 250 in the 2 years after that or something. It's a
Yeah.
really big expansion. It's just a matter of us, well, for one, speaking with one voice to say like, here's the places where, to just where we think that they should be,
Right.
and just advocating for. I think there's also a joint marketing aspect of it, to once we get Clipper two,
Okay.
but I was gonna say that under transit integration,
Yeah,
because that group has started.
okay, great.
Do you think that group would be temporary in nature? Or permanent?
I think it's a permanent group to
Okay.
coordinate on all marketing efforts. I think you already do this quite a bit in Sonoma County, and often we hear like at the last minute about things, and so part of it is just to I think the Clipper would be one of many things that we could jointly market or jointly to have joint fair promotions. I'll decide on a calendar of like, here's when we want to have fair promotions, and there'll be some unique ones locally, but maybe there's a few we can agree on annually that we do or something like that.
Any other regional meeting report outs? All right, then let's go and move on to the MTC Plan Bay Area 2050 plus and Transit 2050 plus updates.
So, let's see. We are having an in-person workshop tomorrow to discuss what named correctly, so that I know, because there's a lot of similar sounding names here. We will be discussing the draft transit strategies for Transit 2050 plus. And so that'll be most of the day working session tomorrow. There's been some draft material that's come out so far on what the network could look like. But MTC has decided they need more time to review their project performance analysis. So we had planned on also touching base on that tomorrow at the workshop, but it sounds like that'll be maybe a couple weeks or a month out before we get to that. There are some projects that have been identified in the draft list, or let me rephrase that. Going from Plan Bay Area 2050 to 2050 plus, there's a significant decrease in the amount of funding available. So there is a new project list that's being worked on for 2050 plus, but it won't be as extensive as 2050 just because there's about half as much money this time around. Specific to the North Bay, it looks like there's some kind of, we call it like formula funds for projects related to PDAs. And then the Sonoma County local bus service expansion was identified as something that would address a regional gap. And so we're having a conversation about that right now because we're not clear how local bus service addresses regional travel gaps. So to be continued.
Right, and they're kind of taking a more fine-grained look at those travel sheds.
Oh, yeah, so on a related note, for the travel sheds analysis that was in 2050 plus, which was very, very, very general for the North Bay, 3 for Marin County and 1 for Sonoma County. Kathleen, you're working with MTC on 15, 16.
Yeah, and I'm awaiting the answer on whether 16 is too many from them right now.
But and that should be detailed enough for the mascots plan project. It's to actually get much more insightful information into the North Bay.
Yep.
So hopefully you'll hear back soon so we can get started on.
Yeah.
I already got the question and told me, how soon could we have that information?
Yeah.
So, well, we hold on, we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But looking forward to that. Yeah, unfortunately with the workshop tomorrow, I don't have much else to report today.
See a question from Steve Berlbach.
Yes, I'm wondering what attention is being given to the Air Resources Board effort to have transit doubled by 2030.
Well, I would say none because there's half as much money this time around. So that would have to be some sort of funding mechanism outside of the Plan B area process.
Well, is anybody telling them how much this is going to cost and what needs to be done?
I don't know. Somebody have to ask Carp.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, there's a joint meeting tomorrow in Petaluma of the Air Resources Board, the CTC, and the housing development groups. And I would like to bring this up, but I need to have a little bit of background about what's going on.
I don't know if CARB's generally unfunded mandates, right? Like, isn't there like a $5 billion or $6 billion gap just for
Zev.
for zero emission vehicles?
Yeah.
So and we're not even to service expansion. That's just existing. So.
Yeah, I know the region is also doing a zero emission bus transition study right now that NTC is leading. I don't know to what extent CARB is tied in with that or not. I wonder if we can link CARB with NTC if they're not talking on it. Hopefully they're already talking. And I don't know if there's websites or documents we could make sure CARB has sent to them.
I think the ZEV transition plan is supposed to be released imminently.
Yeah, a month or so.
Yeah, probably within the next month. And that is to respond to the CARB zero emission mandate, transit zero emission mandate. And I'm sure that report will be provided to CARB. But on the transit service side, I mean, Plan Bay area will be publicly acceptable document and accessible document. And I think the revenue projections are public at this point.
Yeah, yes, at least the draft ones are.
Yeah.
And there will be another round of public outreach this summer on it. So I would assume that CARB gets informed as part of that process.
Yeah.
I think it would be a good point to raise, Steve, and if someone from CARB is there, maybe ask them their thoughts, their knowledge and involvement in the process. If they're tracking the MTC efforts that we just kind of referenced.
Okay, I'll take a look at their agenda and see if Maybe I can get you to come over and talk with them.
Yeah, let me know the details of the meeting. I'll see if we can have something about it.
Since it's close to home. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Thanks.
I had a-
Alright,
I had a quick question, David, about the transit strategies. Is that limited to, I know MDC's talked about the 6 Plan Bay area transit related strategies. Is that kind of what they're working on at the workshop tomorrow? Do you know? Is it limited to those? Does that ring a
I
bell?
would say generally that sounds right to me. I haven't
Okay.
had a chance to dive into it yet.
Yeah.
That's my afternoon today.
Yeah.
I don't think the intent of Transit 2050 plus, or this whole plan, update to Plan Bay area was to revise any of the strategies, was it? Aren't they
It's-
keeping the strategies?
Well, they're being tweaked / updated, so generally
But not
the
like. wholesale
strategies are the
revised.
same, but I
Yeah.
think like maybe a couple of them are being combined. And then some language is being clarified. I think there were some challenges with PBA 2050, like making reference to like a couple specific projects and some most specific concepts that don't necessarily make sense. And so it's more drafting the strategies to be more reflective of the current reality.
Yeah.
Where it's not necessarily a heavy rail extension, it's more like transit extensions, you know, things like that. So it's a lot of wordsmithing,
Yeah,
I would say. That's that exercise. But there's no fundamental shift in the strategies.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard as well. They're not touching any of the strategies other
Yeah.
than maybe those 6.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, and I think 2 of them are being combined
okay.
because they overlapped so much, and then I don't know if the new one's being added into place. I'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah, look forward to hearing.
Alright, well, let's go ahead and transition into the
The
Plan Bay area projects.
Yeah. So before I dive into that, maybe I can just give a really brief update on what we're hearing about the overall schedule for Plan Bay area right now. So we're actually in the process of working with MTC on updating project assumptions for lower cost projects and programmatic categories. So that's kind of where we're at in the process. And then we're hearing from MDC kind of a similar timeline that you're hearing from the Transit 2050 Plus team. Is they're still working through the modeling and analysis for the performance assessment, but we'll see the results soon, probably May.
So more like a month then, yeah.
Yeah, and so we'll be able to review those, provide some comments on it, and a draft project list will go to MTC in June, and then they'll do the outreach over the summer. And the final list will go in September to MTC for approval. So on, shifting gears over to our local projects. So MTC has some consultant report, and they're doing independent cost estimates for transit projects in the plan. So their consultants have come up with a methodology to estimate operation and maintenance costs for projects, and that includes the Sonoma County Headway Improvement Project. So I sent out an email on Monday with the cost estimates. So they're different than what we submitted. So I know Brian did already provide some comments that some of the annual hours that they were using may be a little off. The in-service passenger costs may be a little off, and some of the routes were missing from the list. So I'll forward those back to MTC, but wanted to check in to see if there are any other comments or concerns with MTC doing that, having an independent cost estimate. They would like to use those, so there's consistency across the region, but I want to make sure that, all of our concerns are reflected as they're moving in that direction. So I have those comments from Brian. I need to get back probably tomorrow. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at the table I sent out, please get back to me early tomorrow, and I can compile all those results and send them to Adam Nolting from MTC. So, and there are 2 spreadsheets I sent. One's a summary by agency. And then there's a more detailed spreadsheet that Adam from MTC sent out that has the costs calculated at a individual route level. So there's quite a bit of detail in there if you want to dig in. But yeah, I just wanted to provide an update on that and just get some feedback on your comfort level with those consultant estimates versus what you provided earlier this year or last fall.
Okay, so are you gonna be able after this meeting to go over
Yeah.
real quick,
Yeah,
a couple more?
I can bring up the spreadsheet. We can.
Okay, that'd be
go through
great.
this.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
All right, anything else on that? Let's go ahead and move on to transit integration updates. I'll start off with a brief update on the local bus operator integration work. We have an administrative draft of the integrated transit service plan that we're all reviewing. Comments are due by the end of the day tomorrow, so I know a couple people have gotten in there and started making comments, but it's a long document, so I set aside a little more time this afternoon and tomorrow to finish my review. Hopefully other folks are as well. And then we plan to present that to our transit ad hoc in I think May 20th. We'll get an invitation out to the bus operators to join in on that discussion as well. And then we'll be scheduling board and council presentations in May and June. For the website work, there's been a soft launch of the San Rosa City Bus website, which looks great to me. Maybe Matt could chime in if there's any updates on that, but I think that the full launch hasn't quite happened yet, where the old website will redirect to the new one.
That's correct. We're not redirecting yet, and likely we're not going to have a go live date necessarily. It's going to be more of a go dark date for our current website. So there will be some overlap with a lot of information, trying to get people to go to the new website while the old website's active. That way there isn't a sudden shock to the system of a whole new website overnight. And then eventually we'll kind of let people know that you need transit information for city bus, please go to the new site. But in regards to content, it's basically all there. We're just doing some final look throughs to make sure there's not any bugs or things that are erroneous from an informational standpoint. So we're hoping by the end of the month that we'll start that transition period.
Great, thanks, Matt. And then I'll just add in that I may have mentioned last month, but the transit app Royale service is available now to anyone who's opening and engaging with the app in Sonoma County. So regardless of what transit provider they generally use, they should be able to access that kind of enhanced service through the app. And so kind of on the other end, the transit operators are the local bus operators are able to get in on and kind of look at the data, and that should really help evaluate the benefits of using of having that Royale service and people using the app. So I think there was a message sent out, a banner sent out for Transit Operator Appreciation Day. So I think that was the first time that we used that feature, and kind of interesting to see how many people clicked on it and engaged with the app after seeing that banner. So that's all I have for today on the local bus operator integration work. If anybody has anything else they want to add in, that'd be great. Otherwise, any regional or state integration work that we haven't touched on already, feel free to mention that.
I have a question about the report.
Yeah.
Does it have phasing? Does it are the recommendations to be implemented immediately, or are they, what's the timeline on implementation?
So that's something that is on my list of things I want to review more closely in the draft. Because I think that what we had asked for last time we talked with, the consultants was kind of a next steps, and I'm not quite seeing that yet, so maybe I haven't gotten there yet. But I think that we really need to, that is something that we need to do, is at least kind of figure out, what are the high priorities,
Yeah, okay.
and make sure that that's clear in the report, so that's something I'm still looking at.
Because to the degree that's an input into the mascot service planning, would be good to know, like, what service are we? What is the planned condition?
Right.
And should we be doing service development on that planned condition or on the existing condition?
Right.
Because if
yeah.
it's gonna happen soon, like in the next couple service cycles, then. Because there were some pretty specific service change recommendations in there.
There were, and I think that, there may be some that are fairly easy to implement.
Yeah.
And many that will take quite a lot of work, some additional data collection.
Yeah.
Community outreach. So, yeah, I'll be taking a closer look
Okay.
at priorities and if there's any timelines attached, but, yeah, we should definitely touch base on where that is
Okay.
before getting into, what mascots is analyzing.
Great.
A quick question, going back to the transit app and the Royale service. Do you know if in terms of the kind of survey, the data collection that they do and tend to offer with that, is that going to be accessible to us? And if so, do you know how and or what general information we might be able to receive?
So the local bus operators have access to a dashboard. And we can certainly pump out some reports. I haven't had much of a chance to play around in there. But yeah, happy to talk about it and look into it more and see what can be provided, especially if it relates to the usage on Smart.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know if any of you have had much of a chance to dive into it. Okay. Yeah. Still fairly new, but yeah,
Right.
happy to look into it more. Any other transit integration discussions?
We'd already mentioned that plan where we are with that. The only other one, that's sub-regional transfer plan, that's ongoing, so we're working on the 2 pilot locations. The closest of which is San Rafael Transit Center, and then the other one is El Cerrito del Norte Park. So Golden Gate Transit does go to both of the locations. We'll see what comes back for El Cerrito. For San Rafael, I think we have some challenges around the infrastructure limitations. So it might be more like policy guidance, right? Since unless Smart has more sidings to shift to like a clock face headway, there's not too much that can be done. So we're kind of working out, more like a policy guidelines for, well, if this and this happens, then you can do this. But El Cerrito del Norte, I think, will be much more straightforward in terms of what the plan finds, but that's not really there, obviously. Also, loading up the transit app, since I haven't really used Sonoma County before. City bus is very colorful. Very rapid.
Did you get the Royale, Papa?
Actually, it's loading very slowly, so I'll let you know at some point.
Yeah, and if you don't have your apps automatically updated and it's been a while since you've used it, you may need to update the app to get the Royal service.
Yeah, I do have auto updates on, but it says 5G, but I'm not feeling strong 5G vibes at the moment.
Tempered 5G.
All right, if that's all we have there, let's move on to transit operator updates. Sean, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll let Matt chime in if he wants to get an update to this. He mentioned that our March ridership was up 8% year over year for the month of March, and year to date, we're up 10% year over year. And then with our paratransit ridership, we're about 85 to 90% of pre-pandemic levels. And then we will be putting 3 new paratransit vehicles on the road in probably the next week or two. And then just a heads up for everybody, if you haven't been told yet, our Transmall roadbed rehabilitation project, the timeline is actually moving out to for construction. So instead of over the summer, it will probably start after Labor Day.
And do you know, so is the mapping and wayfinding prototype
So
going in now before?
So I heard that yes, well, they mentioned that they were, I think, putting out a contract right about now. So we're not 100% sure of the timing, but based on the way things move, the expectation is they probably won't be able to get in when they really expect they would be. So likely.
We'll know by Friday.
We'll know by Friday.
There's a regional pilot meeting with MTC and then Solano and Sonoma County operators. Hopefully you've been invited, people in the room, to go over the next steps for the pilot. But it sounds like what Sean said, like we're looking at the summer, but considering they've been pushing back, it could be later. We're unsure. But hopefully we'll have more information on Friday.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. There was a meeting to talk about the pilots with the CTA EDs, but they didn't talk much about the prototype. So hopefully on Friday we'll get some more information about the prototype.
So, but those were the updates I had.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, how about from Marin Transit?
I don't think there's anything big that I haven't said before. We're gonna make the transition to APCs this year, so we're probably gonna be putting out that procurement in the next couple months. We have some new vehicles we're getting. We remain at like between 90 and 100% pre-pandemic, though much lower on our paratransit programs. So we've been doing some work into investigating why that's the case, although it just started to tick up a little bit this last month. So yeah, I don't have any big updates.
Yeah, I don't think I really have much big either with Smart ridership. Took some dips in February, but it's been very strong March and April, and it does look like Marin Transit has surpassed us for Bay Area ridership recovery for February. So congratulations.
Yeah.
We've got our second Petaluma closure coming up, so that'll be on McDowell. First one was to install the gauntlet track at the station to allow freight trains to pass, and this one is to we're actually going to be completely replacing the crossing. Current crossing dates back to 1965. It's one of those legacy ones. So we are really hoping that this small amount of rain in the forecast dies away, and we will see about that. We're also, as you all probably know, just into the beginning of our 1-year pilot for free seniors and youth. So that's very exciting. You know, we're not requiring any tickets, and our conductors aren't going to be specifically counting seniors and youth, so we'll be doing a kind of putting together a sampling plan and doing some manual sampling of that, plus kind of data reverse engineering to figure out those bumps. Yeah, that's about it.
Is it programmed into Clipper? If you tag
Yes, as a zero fare, yeah, but we're not requiring that.
Yeah.
So if you were a senior riding, you'd still have to have Clipper set up as a senior in there, they go around and they validate, or could you just get on?
You can just get right on, yeah.
Would you have to show the conductor anything in particular?
They may require ID, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just if you do tap your card and you have a senior card,
Yeah.
it won't charge you.
Okay.
Thanks. How about from Sonoma County Transit?
Thank you. So the recent BYD buses, the 35-foot BYD buses have been put into service. I hear that we had at least one in Sonoma County the other day, so that's pretty exciting for us. And then our bus yard charging project will resume around middle of this month. And we look like sometime in the fall, we would be finished with that project. Do you have anything to add to that?
The project should be done by December,
Okay, that.
after we restart. That'll give us 19 charging posts.
Yeah.
So be able to fill, we'll be able to recharge up to almost up to 40 buses at night, overnight. So we're only allowed to charge from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. So we're really excited to see that completed.
Can I ask where that cap came from? 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. Is it a PG?
It's from PG&E, yeah. So they're not allowing us to
Because of
charge.
capacity? Like available capacity or?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we were told. We
That's
have
very
9 p.m. and 6 a.m. So you-
Oh, okay.
Due to capacity balance.
Yeah. Yep.
So I would say any agency that anticipates like upgrades to the grid, you should probably expect the same, I would say.
Right. Oh, yeah, we're currently in the process of applying for the low emissions grant. So we're finishing that up and hopefully we'll have our application ready by probably early next week to submit.
For vehicles.
For vehicles, yes, because we already have the infrastructure project going on, so. That's really it. Thank you.
Great. Petaluma?
All right, for Petaluma Transit in February, ridership on fixed route was up 58% compared to the prior February. Paratransit was up 42%. So that's good news. Continue to see an increase from our K through 12 free youth program. And of course, we're working towards doing fare free overall for the system, rolling that out in by July 1st. So finalizing details of that, which we'll continue to share out. We also recognized Driver Appreciation Day on March 18th. Did an event there for our drivers. They really appreciated that. Continuing to work on the microtransit pilot program. Also similarly hoping to launch that by July 1st with a possible soft launch in the latter part of June. So getting all the details of that finalized as well. For our electric buses, we're getting 4 of them from New Flyer, finalizing the build specs, seating, flooring right now, but anticipate taking delivery in February, still 2025. Also still working on our yard infrastructure upgrades to be done by the end of 2024. There's a meeting on May 1st, which is a joint meeting of the Petaluma Transit and Pedestrian Bike Advisory Committees to talk about the transportation element of the general plan. The city has rolled out its initial general plan element drafts. There's 14 of them, I believe, of which transportation is one. Transportation is the one that includes generally all the bike transit elements. And so that joint meeting of those two committees will be held on May 1st to discuss the transportation element. But all the different committees, commissions throughout Petaluma will be meeting to discuss the respective elements for those over the next month or two. And there's an upcoming community workshop to discuss all the major elements, although the date's getting at the moment, but it'll be on the city website. Couple kind of construction related items for the smart work near McDowell. We'll be doing a slight detour on Route 333. We're finalizing the map now. I'll send that to Sonoma County Gold Gate just so you can see what we're doing. For us, it only really impacts about 4 to 5 stops. And it's only on Saturday and Sunday that we anticipate the impacts. I believe it starts at 10 p.m. on Friday. Okay. So just weekend work, hopefully for us. And then the city will be doing a repave project on Maria Drive from Rainier to North McDowell Boulevard over the next 4 to 6 months. For us, it'll be relatively minor impacts, mostly stop closures with temporary stops being opened throughout that time. But also more information on the city website for that project too, if people want to see that. And then last, we have the Butter and Egg Days Parade on April 20th. We encourage the public to get out and ride transit on that day. Of course, you can ride Route 11, the east-west connector on Washington. We have an extra bus. We're running 15-minute frequency on that. And it runs free all weekend as well for that weekend and the following one when the antique fair is on the following Saturday. And that's it.
I think it shows how often I don't get to this meeting because it almost sounds like I hear butter and eggs every time. It's like, man, that's a really good event.
It's building and reaching the crescendo, right?
Yeah. I have a question about the micro transit. So is it the same app? Is it an app? Do you have to download an app?
It is an app. It'll be via.
But different app than the Smart one?
Correct.
Because I think Smart's expanding some of their shuttles. And so there will be shuttles for one app throughout the corridor, and then that will be, it's an unfortunate need to download multiple apps, but
Yeah, it's something we looked at, we looked at all the different
yeah.
providers of it. We talked to Smarts. We looked at their provider, which is called the routing company. The app is Pingo. And we thought that the VIA one makes the most sense for Petaluma.
Yeah.
Thinking about not just this service, but kind of longer term of the needs of the community. If we do more micro transit, things like that, we thought this was kind of the best model. But it is a pilot program. So it's something to where we're going to run it for a year or so is how we're determining the pilot. We're open to kind of taking a look at it again if other agencies possibly want to do it. If you want to make it a larger effort and do kind of a corridor-wide look at it or RFP, we're always open to that as well.
Yeah.
But for now, wanting to get this off the ground is kind of one of our big goals, priorities. That's kind of what we thought made the most sense for the pilot program.
Is it certain areas or is it the whole city? What are the?
We're finalizing the zone now, but generally it's going to be the fairgrounds, Smart Station, and then the Copeland Transit Mall right nearby. It'll include downtown and a little portion of West Petaluma. We're finalizing the exact boundaries of it. That's maybe 3 to 4 square miles, I would say right now. And so that'll be a piece we have in the next month or so is those exact details of the boundary. But we're going to identify 1 or 2 other zones in the future that could be future rollout zones, expansion zones. Most notably, maybe having one for the new Smart Station at Corona when it rolls out. So that's something that we want to look at more, of course.
So that has to be a destination has to be one of those places. So it's just.
No, it's going to be a zone, a polygon. Those will be the main highlights boundaries, but anywhere within the polygon.
You can
which
go
surround
from
those,
any,
you can
to
go
and from anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
So more details. We're happy to present on it here.
Okay.
When we have more of those details and we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Answer more
Okay.
questions.
How do you, have you established a fare structure?
Yeah.
Great.
Because everything's free, right?
That's free
Yeah.
too.
Everything's
Everything's all free. You got it.
Lunch.
There is such a thing as a free lunch.
It's wearing lunch.
All right, thank you. All right, updates from Golden Gate Transit.
I was gonna say, I've used the VIA app when I lived in the city of Richmond. The interface, it's pretty consistent with your Uber and Lyft type experience, which is good.
Oh yeah, they've been running via the Tri-Delta
Oh, they've been
micro
doing
transit
that.
services through via, for example.
Yeah, so they've had some experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Golden Gate, updates, quite a few for you. I think first, our board of directors approved a toll increase. So tolls will be going up 50 cents a year for the next 5 years. With the first one starting July 1st. So fast track will be $9.25, I believe. I don't actually pay to cross that bridge because I don't have a need to go that way. So I actually don't know how much it costs exactly, but I think it's $8.75 currently. So it should go up to $9.25 and then 50-cent increments from there on. That toll increase will only cover about 50% of the budget deficit for our transit services. So we'll see how that goes. Moving forward, so that means we still have some sort of fiscal cliff at our agency. And related to that, we do have a strategic plan that we've been working on, and The first draft of the draft final strategic plan went to our board at the March meeting. And so then it will be back again this month as a final draft final strategic plan. And that will I guess be discussed this month with the board committee, subcommittee. It's like the board acting as its own subcommittee. So what's not clear to me is if this month or if it's going to be May where the final strategic plan actually gets approved by the board. So that I don't think I'll have an answer for another week. But the strategic plan does have 40 initiatives in it. Several of which pertain to transit service. So if you want, I can share what we have so far. I could just send you the board item that went at the March meeting, if that helps.
That'd be great.
The strategic plan initiatives are very high level. I would say that all 40 initiatives fit onto like four pages. Yeah, to be continued there, but the effort's been underway for over a year now, so it's nice to see something coming down so that we have some direction on where things will be going in the future. In terms of our service, our ridership, actually I'll say that our bridge traffic for the month of February was up 3% from the previous February, so it's good to see those increases because that's where a majority of our transit funding comes from at our agency. Specific to our bus service for the month of February, ridership is up 11% compared to last year. So numbers are still up. Unfortunately, compared to pre-pandemic, the number is still down by quite a bit, by over 50%. For ferry in February, ridership was up 19% compared to last year. Which is good to see, but it is still down over 50% compared to pre-pandemic, unfortunately. We have a construction project that's supposed to start next month at our main facility in San Rafael. That will include solar panels. So I think the intent there is we'll have charging for. We currently have charging for 2 buses. I think we're gonna have charging for 4 buses when the project's done. And the solar panels should power the bus charging, but we'll see how that goes. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know exactly how it works. That construction project should take probably from May through the end of the year into the winter season. So we'll see how that goes. We'll also be doing some significant improvements to our drainage as well in our employee parking lot. As you know, that part of San Rafael is all on bay mud. So it's shifted since it was built in 1972 or whenever it built it. Let's see, we also have service changes that took effect Monday for ferry. On the ferry side of things, for the Larkspur route, which is what would be of interest to this group, no weekday changes. On weekends, we did discontinue the early morning round trip that we have. But we did add an additional evening trip from San Francisco back to Larkspur. And we were able to do that because we expanded service to Sausalito later in the day. Bus service changes take effect this Sunday. Minor schedule adjustments for service to and from Sonoma County. The big thing for us is the implementation of Route 580X, which is our San Rafael to El Cerrito route. And it's back before the great renumbering of December 2021, it was known as Route 40X. It's been suspended since the pandemic, but we're bringing it back. Unfortunately, not very many trips initially, but hopefully more trips later on. And so that bypasses Point Richmond, which is a major traffic issue on the Richmond Bridge corridor. And it also bypasses East San Rafael, which is mostly some low density office parks, not too much going on over there. Let's see. Route 101 bus assignments, we're in the process of reassigning mostly our GILIGs to the route. We had been running a mix of MCIs and GILIGs, but due to safety issues in San Francisco, we've had to shift to the GILIGs for all of our regional routes that run through the Civic Center area. So the 101, 130, and 150. You know, the low floor configuration has much better visibility into the back of the bus since it's kind of up on a podium versus the MCIs where you can't really see that well in the back of the bus. So hopefully that takes care of the problems we're having there. And then one interesting thing that's not directly Sonoma County related, but in the Richmond Bridge corridor, MTC, or technically BADA, just approved funding, RM3 funding for transit signal priority in the Cutting Boulevard corridor, which is where the 580 and 580X run. So it'll be nice to see that project kick into gear. It'll be led by AC Transit, who's also doing TSP work elsewhere in Richmond, not in the regional corridor. But they were able to use RM3 funding for Cutting Boulevard because Route 580 is there. I think that's it from me. I'm sure
Are
there's
the
something.
TSP technologies all compatible? I know this has been an outstanding question, but
Yeah, so Muni, AC Transit, and us all use GTT technology, and so they all match, which is good. And I think it's maybe a coincidence that AC Transit and Muni match, but it's great for us since we actually serve both of their service areas, and that's a match.
And I think our TSP is the same, that's the same as Opticon, right?
My understanding is Petaluma uses something older that's not compatible.
Oh, when I said
That's what
what
I-
Dennis, he thought it was, but. yeah,
apparently
not all of it.
Opticom, there's many versions of Opticom. That's what I have learned.
Okay,
Is that saying Opticom does not mean yes or no. You have to know which Opticom you have,
okay.
Right, yeah.
from what I understand.
That's-
Because
that-
San
that-
Rafael is also moving forward with a TSP that will benefit Golden Gate and Marin Transit.
Right.
And I think it's a pretty advanced Opticom system.
Yeah,
But
and we
are
had
you-
this
is that-
discussion for Cutting Boulevard, which is there is through some sort of API, you are able to ping the Cradle Point routers on our buses to have like a more integrated, like cloud-based solution. And I know that's the direction CCTA wanted to go and is going in other parts of Contra Costa County. But I think AC Transit and Golden Gate weren't really enthused about that just because the cloud-based solution, you know, is you're lucky if you get the support for the life of the bus. Right, because that's how tech goes. But yes, so my understanding from people who know much more about this than me at work is that Petaluma has an older system that doesn't work with the newer system. So, but it sounds like everything's a moving target, especially since you know, agencies like CCTA really want to transition to something more cloud-based ultimately.
Would be interesting to see, I don't know if there's a chart, do you have a chart that you know that has all the different systems by the different areas?
So this came up at the GM meeting. And I do think there's going to be, I think there needs to be more discussion on TSP, and I think that's requested specifically is going to Alex at MTC.
Okay.
So that will then filter down to probably Mika and Joel, who are running that transit integration effort. They seem the most well-positioned to do a regional list of where is TSP in the region, and I do think it's needed. And or through MTC's Arterial Operations Committee, which has historically been comprised of city staff. But yeah, so I think this is a little bit of a work in progress, but
Yeah.
did you see the GPT? Is this?
GTT, not to be confused with GGT.
Yeah. And it's AC Transit, Golden Gate, and who else?
And SFMTA.
SFMTA.
We're all on the same system, at least that's what I've been told. Because we had to add it to our buses in order to use band SBRT. And so it just coincidentally works. And so then AC Transit has it currently in the vicinity of El Cerrito Del Norte BART station. So it's just a matter of turning it on for us in that area, which I think is getting the access code or whatever you need in order to use the system. So that's in progress. And so then that'll be expanded to the entire Cutting Boulevard corridor. So
Have you been participating in the meetings with San Rafael, or is that Ray?
the San Rafael one, I think, has been Ray. I've been handling the East Bay one along with Ray and Emily.
Yeah.
We're kind of tag team.
Yeah.
When the meetings are. But
But I
Ray is
think-
really the fountain of knowledge.
Golden Gate's gonna be able to take advantage of the San Rafael one also via
Hopefully.
some mechanism.
Hopefully there'll be a system that's compatible.
Okay.
So I figure we'll have to have that same discussion that we
Yeah.
had with Richmond and CCTA. where
Okay.
It's like, well, either it's this GTT technology or it's some sort of newer system that you can use an API to ping.
The cradle
Cradle
points. I
point.
think that's what we're doing. So, okay.
All terminology that I've learned over.
Yeah, exactly.
So I keep an acronym list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, very technical.
I'll just add as well, I forgot to say this Smart did change or make minor adjustments to our weekend schedule to one. That's very.
All right, yeah, because we always check the two schedules. And I know April is always, so this is our first year of doing the regional sign up dates at Golden Gate Transit. So we're still fine tuning like April, like the dates are off by a week this year because of the Giants schedule. And there's a lot of factors that make it not a precise science. But you know, January and August are really the key dates for everyone moving forward. And the 580 exchange was originally something we would have wanted to do in August, but there was a lot of pressure to do something faster because it's a real problem in the corridor getting through.
Yep.
I'll make a note to email you guys the draft strategic plan.
Great, thank you.
I will say Dennis said at the GM meeting that comment letters are welcome in the next few weeks, which made me think that a final was not going to go this month.
So it's
So in our
the
mind,
draft final that's going.
Yeah.
next month.
and he did say comment letters are welcome, super open to hearing comments on the
Yeah,
strategic
oh yeah,
plan.
that's one thing I forgot to mention, yeah, so comments from agencies, from the public are still being welcomed, so.
But I got the sense like anytime this month is fine, which made me think that those will all filter into a final that would go in
Gotcha.
May.
That would make sense, so.
Yeah.
I haven't, since I was out, I haven't gotten an update since.
Yeah.
The GM meeting on
Yeah.
Friday, the 5th or whatever that
Yep.
was.
All right, great. I'll give a brief update on the Sonoma and Marin bike share program. We met last week with the cities and transit districts where we're planning bike share sites, and we are still in the process of reviewing the previously vetted sites that we identified through the previous operator. Once that review is fully done and we're kind of confirmed which of those sites work and any issues at those, we'll work with Drop Mobility to look like holistically at the site plan and fill in any station, or we call them hubs, not stations, hub locations, kind of the additional ones that are needed. The hubs are generally racks that are kind of like 5-ring racks. So you could do multiples of 5. And I mean, they do have another option where you can't actually install a 5-ring rack, but ideally most places we will be able to do, 5 to 10 racks. And let's see. We're kind of moving forward with some branding considerations, have settled on, I believe, Redwood Bike Share as the term, as a brand. So kind of looking at some different designs and how they would look, how that branding would look on the bikes and the signage and the app. I think that's it for now. Yeah, hopefully I'll have some more updates on the process next month.
A couple questions. So it would be the type where you would be expected to return it to the specific hub, not just kind of the free open-ended.
Correct.
And then the racks are dumb racks, all the intelligence is still on bikes.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah, so smart bikes, dumb racks.
Okay.
The rack, yeah.
I won't call
There's geofencing around the hub, so which will include like a little more area than just the actual racks themselves. So if the rack's totally full, you can lock the bike to itself next to the rack and still be considered, not get fined for parking out of the hub. So I know that's an issue in a lot of places that have dock-based systems. The dock gets full and your time keeps charging. Your time keeps ticking until you find a parking spot. So that should help alleviate that. We also talked a little bit at our last meeting about options to geofence some like additional parking areas, maybe where there's already existing racks, where that are not official hubs, and bikes won't be rebalanced to those racks, but they may be areas where people might want to leave a bike. So that's something that kind of examining, I think that Petaluma is particularly interested in.
Is it free for some period of time and then it will start charging, or do you pay from the moment?
It'll be, you'll be paying from the launch. We may be able to figure out some kind of introductory period, or free rides for a certain number of people or something. So we haven't quite gotten there yet, but the plan is for.
Do you have a price? Or is that still?
That is still being confirmed. We have some things in our contract where it can't go above, but we haven't confirmed the exact price yet.
I meant to the user.
Yeah, for the users, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have some limits in the contract for the user pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah, previously at least they had, obviously the individual rates, but they had bulk rates. I think they had low income rates. Is
Yeah.
that all intended again?
Yes, that is
Okay.
all intended again.
Okay.
So
Who's the company?
Drop Mobility.
Not Redwood Credit Union?
Not Redwood.
Yeah.
There's a real
Pretty
branding
good
opportunity
sponsor.
there.
Maybe a
Yeah,
logical
exactly.
sponsor.
Share some.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. maybe-
get some money from
maybe
them
we
for
can
free
them.
advertising or for advertising.
Just use your logo and you can pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I expect to get into like the exact pricing and membership options in the next couple months.
What's the launch?
We don't have a launch date yet. We're aiming for like late summer, so
Okay.
hoping to get there. I think that this phase right now, kind of the site planning and then going through the permitting process will really determine how long it takes. So once we jump into the permitting, I think we'll have a better sense of when we can get it launched.
Yeah, the communities now should be knowledgeable due to the prior efforts that it's coming down the pipe. I don't know if any of the permits, because some communities had them issued irrelevant, or if that's all out the window at this point. But hopefully it'll be fairly quick and expedite on that side of things, like the cities get it permitted.
Yeah, I think any permits that were approved previously are not valid anymore. It's a different operator and there's gonna be some slight modifications, so we'll need to go through that process again, but we do have the staff reports and resolutions drafted from last time, so it should be a little easier this time.
Will other bikes be able to park at the bike racks, or will there be signage to discourage other people from biking? At the
Yeah, so I believe that the main hubs are going to say bike share parking only. Those other like optional parking spots that.
Yeah, those will be.
Parking areas that may be opened up for bike share will not have any signage, but they'll show up in the app as places you can end your trip.
Interesting.
So yeah, I think that the publications will have like a vertical sign and it'll say something about, parking for the bike share bikes.
I think in many cases, the point Janet made, you'll want parking nearby, like in Petaluma, Bjork's talked about that. at the smart stations. I know they often want to put it near the other existing bike parking. But I would think you probably want to differentiate it so you don't get general bikes tied to the
Yeah.
bike share racks, but close to them.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely good to co-locate.
Another semantic question, it's obviously a few different terms. In terms of, for the most official, for license agreements and contracts, what are the parking hubs called? Is it hubs, docks, parking areas?
I believe hubs is the term we want to use.
Hubs, okay.
Yeah, but we should, I mean, we can confirm that with,
Okay.
and get consensus with the group, because I think that it is important, especially. I mean, they're not, since I always think of a dock-based system as having docks, right?
Yeah.
Since these are dumb racks, right?
Right,
They
right.
are not exactly docks, and we don't want to call them stations, because that's confusing with transit stations, so.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, hubs is also.
Hubs
used.
can be
Yeah.
too, yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
If you come up with something else, let me know.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting, if Smart's microtransit, Petaluma Transit's microtransit, and Red Ray Credit Unions, the bike sharing system all work out, to have an integrated first last mile app someday in
Yes.
the future would be really cool.
Yes, I've definitely thought about that. And I think that there are some companies that can do that. And I know that like the transit app can integrate with bike share systems if you're adding a bike share system that they don't already have integrated. It's pretty expensive.
Mm.
Were
But-
they gonna integrate it at all with Clipper,
Uh,
or is that just a potential that?
So one thing that we can do is use Clipper as an identifier, so if somebody wants to use a Clipper card rather than a smartphone to unlock the bikes, there should be, like, we could work with them to do an RFID reader on the bike, and then have your Clipper card tied to your bike share account, kind of how the bike link lockers work, where you can have a bike link locker account tied to your Clipper card. You're not using like any cash on your Clipper card for transit, but it's kind of separate accounts tied to it. So that is something that we can set up. Is my understanding. Not sure how complicated it is, but I know it's possible.
Speaking of integration, do we know at this point if like the GBFS feed will be a part of the drop system?
Yes, that is a requirement in our, either GB. Wasn't it GB?
GBFS is the public
GBFS,
facing
right.
one, and then MDS is the private.
Yeah, so I think that our contract requires either or, but that we
Okay.
have access to
Okay.
it, so at least SAT and TAM will have
Okay.
access to it.
But not necessarily a public feed that the transit app could pick up.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good question. I'll look into
Okay.
that. That's a good question for drop. What do they provide?
The number of bikes each.
Yeah.
That would be the bike equivalent of the GBFS
Exactly,
feed.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What we would like to do is if you have a transit hub that has both bus, or rail, and then bike share, you can have it on one screen.
Exactly.
You can have that feed integrated.
Yeah.
in. So you could say how many
Yeah.
bikes are available nearby the
Yeah.
bike share hub or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll ask drop which one they use. And then they may have told us, but I can't remember right now.
It's actually general, like, feed specification.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I learned something new too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too. I didn't realize that one was.
Like you
public.
could get it through Google Maps.
Yeah.
The same way you can.
Yeah.
Would be.
And that's the MBS one is the. public.
MDS is the private, for kind of regulating. Yeah.
Right, thanks for that. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to other business comments and announcements.
I have a quick announcement.
Yeah.
So our community-based transportation plan RFP is open and on our website. So just wanted to update the group. So proposals are due on May 24th, so that should kick off sometime this summer.
Are you doing one?
One for South Santa Rosa Avenue and one for Central Roner Park.
Great, well, thank you all.
Thank you.
David.
Oh, David, sorry about that, I didn't see it there.
No problem. I just want to let everyone know that on Monday, our board approved the remaining programming for our share of the Regional Measure 3 North Bay Transit Access Improvements Program. That included 10.6 million for Santa Rosa's bike pedestrian overcrossing project, 2 million for Petaluma Transit's transit facility electrification project, 1 million for Santa Rosa City Buses Transit Hub Improvements Project, and 3.6 million for Sonoma County Transit for 4 replacement buses. So please feel free to reach out to me as you move forward with trying to figure out when you want to receive allocations of those funds from MTC. There's a process you got to go through that Smart's dealing with right now for their Windsor Undercrossing project, but could have that $20 million programmed for transit projects.
Thanks, David. On that note, I'll just mention that our board approved the coordinated claim on Monday, so be submitting that to MTC and can make your allocations requests. All right, anything else? Thank you all.
Thank you.